to the speaker series. I think this is a really useful series to have in Drumheller, and we're so happy for the Chamber to be running this series for us. So as Heather said, my name is Dr. Sarah Newstead. I'm the Executive Director of the Atlas Coal Mine. And a few months ago, we were in negotiation with Rod to come out and do a little bit of speaking and training at the Atlas. And Rod's session was so great at the Atlas that we decided that we wanted to sponsor him to come and talk to a broader group in Drumheller, because what he's going to be talking to you guys today about is really, really useful for relationship building and building your businesses in general. So Rod Burylo is a Canadian Advisor of the Year award winner. He's a serial financial services entrepreneur. He's an international speaker and trainer, media contributor, and business author. Rod serves as a board director and committee member for public and private companies, and he's also the director for the Foundation of the Advancement of Entrepreneurship. So join me in welcoming Rod.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I like doing the speaking after everybody's eaten because we're all just now like, this is good. The tension is gone. It's okay if I don't speak with a microphone today, right? Good? You guys can hear me okay back there? Excellent. Sarah, thank you so much for the introduction. And it's my pleasure and delight to be here on behalf of Atlas Coal Mine. I think it's a really cool organization. And I also want to thank everybody for coming out, taking time from their day to participate in this, and hopefully you'll afterwards think, that was a good way to spend an hour. Maybe that speaker wasn't too bad. We'll see. Boy, that introduction, I forgot I was going to do all that stuff, Sarah, so I really have my work cut out for me, so I better stop this and get on to other things. Anybody here in the financial services industry or work there at some point? A little bit. You kind of heard that my background is mostly financial services, with some accounting and some real estate kind of stuff. And for those of you that know the financial services industry, it can be kind of broad. There's a lot of different types of activities in there, different sectors. And my background's a little different because I had a chance to kind of spend time in all of the major sectors as I've been going through my career. I shouldn't say as I went through, because it's been 30-something years for me and I'm still at it somehow. But I feel really fortunate about that because it gave me this nice broad exposure to a whole bunch of different types of business activities. And as you heard from the introduction, sometimes along the way, I had some little successes, an Advisor of the Year award winner, and some international speaking and stuff. And I ended up starting and owning the largest private debt and equity dealership in Canada, which I sold. And that kind of helped me do some things like help with the foundation and that kind of thing. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is not because I want you to think that I think I'm good at stuff. In fact, I'm about to make the exact opposite point. I'm actually very surprised in retrospect at the little bit of successes I did have and hope to have still in the financial services industry, because those successes are really unlikely for me, because I'm really not very good at stuff that you would associate with the financial services industry. I don't have strong math skills. I really don't. I failed science in university. I had to find something else to do. I did not study business. I did not study engineering or economics or accounting or law or any of those things that you might associate with being on the board of a public company. I didn't do any of that stuff. My undergraduate degree was actually in philosophy. My specialty was ethics and some jurisprudence stuff, which is the philosophy of law. And my interests was not in business when I was young. I mean, I'm on the board of the Foundation for the Advancement of Entrepreneurship, and we give scholarship dollars to junior achievement kids. And if you know junior achievement stuff, some of these kids are really smart and really good at business already. And I was none of that stuff. I was interested in literature and theater and stuff like that. It's very unlikely that I should have had those successes. So kind of what went on, let me tell you what I think went on. One of my takeaways from this kind of experiences that I've had is there's really two types of activities that we all do in our businesses, whether you're in financial services or something else. The two activities we do is what we do to give value to the market, including our staff and our colleagues and so on, what we do to give value, and communicating about what we do to give value. And what I've learned along the way is that I'm not very good at the value part. Fortunately, a lot of people are really smart, but what those really smart people often need is someone to communicate on their behalf. And sometimes, because they're so smart, they just have trouble talking about it. And so I've learned a long time ago that if I was a good communicator, then maybe I could participate in these successful businesses and have some success on my own. Now, we could talk about communication strategy at length. I do long workshops on that, but there's one point I want to make about communication. every communication strategy has something that it has to talk about, which is the objective of the communication. So really what I'm talking about today is the objective of communication strategy for relationship building. Relationship starting, managing, maintaining, going forward. So we're going to talk about this kind of communication and that kind of outcome. How did I arrive at talking and writing about this kind of topic? It actually goes back to my early 30s when I was a struggling financial advisor. But I was very ambitious, very goal-oriented. Even with my foolish philosophy degree, I decided that I could be better than average. And I was really determined to try and be successful, but I really didn't know what to do because I didn't have any of these classic business, intellectual, mathematical skills. And so I decided that my opportunity to differentiate in the market and become a better than average financial advisor was to start giving seminars. As you can tell, 30 years later, I do like to speak. And so I thought, if I get some really compelling material, get a workshop together, market myself as a speaker, this is going to be my way to success. So I did that. Got everything organized, started to market myself, and it wasn't very long before I landed my first really important gig as a speaker. This is the one I thought, wow, this is the thing that's going to get me started on that whole new path. And it was at a teachers' conference in Calgary at the Palliser Hotel. You guys know the Palliser? Nice venue, hundreds of teachers. And I'm invited to speak at this conference about a topic related to money. Now, you guys have been to conferences, I'm sure. And you know, one of the formats is typically in the morning, everybody listens to the same speaker. And in the afternoon, you have the breakout speakers. Yes, you familiar with that idea? And so those breakout speakers are in competition to get an audience. So I'm one of these breakout speakers. They invite me down to the Palliser for lunch before the afternoon. I like lunch. That's how they got me out here today. Promise of lunch. Thank you. Good lunch, by the way. And so I went for the lunchtime, and my speaking activity was at 1 o'clock. So I show up at the Palliser ballroom, hundreds of teachers, big circular tables. I'm invited to sit at the table with some of the other speakers, as well as some of the organizers. So I sit down, and it doesn't take me very long before I realize who at the table is my competitor speaker that afternoon. Turns out it's a guy named Bruce Kirkby. Don't expect you to remember the name. This is going back to the 90s. But Bruce had just come back from climbing Mount Everest with a big group from Calgary that made a lot of news. He had been on a whole bunch of adventures. He had just finished crossing the Arabian desert on the back of a camel, which I guess had almost never been done by a person from North America. Had just written a book about this called Sandance, which ended up becoming an international best-selling adventure book. And, ladies and gentlemen, as it turns out, he's a great storyteller and brought all these pictures that he had taken. And to make matters worse, he's tall, really good-looking guy, ponytail, big smile, exactly. I wanted to go hear him speak. I got nervous. Who's going to come hear me speak? So I finish up the lunch. I get to my room. Getting the room organized for this breakout session. I got the PowerPoint going, got the handouts and the chairs ready. 1 o'clock's coming, so I go to the door, open up the door, hoping to have some people coming into my room. Guess how many came in? 0. I had none. Now, first thing I think is, okay, they're finishing up lunch. You're going to be a couple minutes late. But I wait, and then a small group of people came. I said, oh, like, welcome to the room. And they mumble something to me that Camel Boy ran out of chairs. They were told to come see me next door. You know, it was like a slap in the face. They came in, and it went very badly. I mean, this audience was it was a reluctant audience is what this was. I had a couple of people sleeping, and they probably all would have slept, except that every once in a while, you could hear from the room next door this spilling over of laughter from Camel Boy's presentation. And you can kind of see everyone picking up their ear, trying to get this. And how can you compete with that? So I gave my presentation. It went poorly. And I started the long drive home that day. Lived out in the countryside, and you live in the countryside. You know what it's like if you have a really crappy day and you're driving home and it starts to get into your head. My thoughts got really dark that day. I started thinking, what am I doing? How can I be so sure that this is my way of becoming better than average and be so completely wrong? Completely wrong, like embarrassingly wrong. Maybe I should give up this. Why am I struggling, to barely be average in a business? Maybe what I should do is give this up, find something else to do, maybe something I have a natural talent for, if there is such a thing. And my thoughts got really dark that day, seriously. But just before I got home, I had this flash of insight in my head. People don't want to listen to me speak about money, that's fine. If they want to talk and listen to Camel Boy, I'm going to give them Camel Boy. So the next day I called Bruce Kirkby up and I said, Bruce, I want to do an event and I want you to be the speaker. Now I've never done an event before. I had no idea what I was doing, but he said yes. I contacted a theater in Airdrie where I was living at the time. There's a 400-seat theater there, which I did not expect to get 400 people out. Don't get me wrong. I figured if I had 100, that's a reasonable objective. Try to get 100 people out and secured the venue and started to invite people to this event. Well, things started taking on a life of their own. The radio station's calling, the newspapers are calling. They want to interview Bruce. Bruce is now the front cover of the newspaper. His book is becoming a bestseller because this was a few months out. The theater is calling, saying to me, hey, we're getting calls from people who want to attend your event. It's a private event. It's not open to the public. But the demand started increasing so much, I started realizing that I was easily going to have 400 people out, that I quickly booked Bruce for another night, got the theater again, and then the second night sold tickets to the public, which covered the cost of both events, gave me a chance to address 800 people with Bruce, start relationships, maintain relationships I had, all very, very, very cost effectively. I had enough business opportunity there to last me a couple of years. And I made a promise to myself at that time, back in the 90s, that every year and a half or so, I would do an event like that and engage as many people as possible, existing relationships and starting new relationships. To the point where my first book that came out is on that topic. My current book, called More Awesome Client Events, still sells internationally on this topic. And it's a topic that I've really come to embrace because I think it has a lot of merit, relationships. I want to shift gears for a moment now and talk about something else and then come back to relationships. If I asked you to come up with a working definition of the word success, does anything pop into your head? Freedom. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's an example of success. I have a working definition of success. It's not a complicated one. My working definition of success is simply setting and accomplishing goals. Now, I like this definition because I think it's useful. It's useful for two reasons in my mind. First of all, is it tells us that goals can be personal. That while, yes, there are things that we associate with success like freedom or having a family or, I don't know, a nice home or whatever it is that means something to you. At the same time, we can also think of success in terms of what it means to us personally. Personal success. The other reason why I like the definition is it tells me that if I want to increase the likelihood of being successful, I can focus on my goal-setting skills. And I think that's very useful. Now, a lot of us have probably heard speakers in our business lives or academic lives that talk about goal setting, yes? And you've probably heard things like the expression a SMART goal, specific, measurable, action-oriented, results-based, time-bound, or something like that. You're familiar with that idea, right? Basically, someone saying, hey, if you get better at setting goals, you'll be more likely to be successful. And then we're taught other things in the course of our career. That if we share those goals, if we write them down, if we celebrate the accomplishments along the way, we'll again be more likely to be successful. You're familiar with these concepts, right? One of the things I like about this, what I call success theory, or coming to understand success in practical terms, is it tells us something else. It tells us there's at least two types of goals we can set. One of these types is called a competitive goal. These are the goals that we set that are such that if we're going to be successful, it means somebody else must be unsuccessful. Our success means somebody else fails at something. A road race. I see your eyebrows going up. There's a whole bunch of hockey game. Pick a bunch of things like that. You got to list the house, which means the other realtor that wanted to get the house didn't get the listing. I'm not saying you're a realtor. It's the first thing that popped into my head. You get where I'm going with this, right? Success requiring failure. The other form of success is positive goals. Goals that we set that are such that if we're successful, it means the other person is also successful. These are kinds of businesses like being a lawyer, an accountant, any business owner where you're wanting to be successful yourself and you're going to approach that by making sure that people around you are accomplishing their own goals. Why is this useful? Because one of the things it tells us is that in a competitive goal environment, we have competitive relationships that are formed. These relationships do not want us to win because that means they're a loss. So they undermine our efforts. In the positive goal environment, we also have relationships emerge. We can call these positive relationships. And these are relationships that want us to be successful. because our success means their success. These are our collaborators, these are our colleagues, these are our staff, our life partners in some respect. Now this has come to mean so much to me in my 30 years of doing this work that long ago I abandoned the idea that I was going to try to articulate success in terms of a financial services activity. I'm not going to define success by how many clients I had or how much money I managed or how much money I made. What I would do is define success in terms of the relationship. How many new quality relationships did I start? How many relationships do I manage to maintain and nurture? And then if I focused entirely on these positive relationships, I would be far more likely to get the kind of success that I wanted. And this relationship discussion, along with doing the events, began to become married. And I began to see how this event was a relationship building and a relationship starting strategy that I could use in a very competitive environment like financial services to start businesses, to grow businesses, to differentiate myself in the market. And it worked very, very well for me. So relationships is the core. One of the problems we have in this day and age, though, is the number of relationships we're expected to manage and be good at is so high that many talk about the inability for humans to manage the number, our lack of capacity. We are at capacity. I've read, I'm not a scientist like some of the people in the room, but I've read it proposed that the maximum number of relationships we can meaningfully manage are around 150. Has anybody else read that kind of stat? No? About 150. I've seen that consistently in a few places. And they also proposed, by the way, that Neanderthals could manage about 144 relationships. We haven't improved a whole bunch. And now we can think about this. You know, that probably makes a lot of sense. An average tribe size for many, many millions of years might have been up around 150 people. We did not have to manage more relationships like that as we were dispersed around the planet. But of course, over the last 200 years, people moved from a rural environment to cities. Now, fairly recently, for the first time in history, we have more people on the planet living in cities than in a rural environment. And the number of people that we're connecting with constantly has skyrocketed. With your businesses alone, you probably have more than 150 people you're trying to stay connected with. Never mind staff and family and people on the bowling team, you know, people down the block, people in the chamber that you're trying to form relationships with. It's extremely difficult. Some people would say impossible for us to manage the number of relationships we're supposed to manage based upon our actual skill set. But people are not limited by their physical ability, are we? We're tool makers. And one of the categories of tools that we've made to help do what we cannot normally do, we might call these tools technology. Technology in our lifetime is manifest to provide a variety of different kinds of services to us, the users. And one of them that we're being proposed to, that technology can manage, is this idea of using technology to manage a relationship. That's what they're trying to sell us on this. Now you might get the sense that I'm not necessarily a buyer of that product. That I don't think that they're exactly right. I think they're trying to sell us something. And I do think people that create technology at a mass scale and implement it are crafty. Come up with, maybe that's the best word. They're crafty. They don't want us to be threatened by the form and the use of technology that's being introduced over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And I want to make a point about this. Hopefully I can justify that particular perspective. My introduction to technology as a business person was in 1987. I started my first job as a stockbroker's assistant in Vancouver, and I was sat down at this desk and I had this massive computer in front of me. Anybody have a computer back in the 80s? Right. It didn't do much, right? It didn't do much. I was getting quotes for stock prices, and to actually do a stock trade, though, you had to actually talk to people and write it on pieces of paper and then give it to the trader, and the trader would call down to the floor and they'd pass pieces of paper. It was really old school, low tech. But there was this computer that provided me with a little bit of information. I was not threatened by this. That tiny little bit of work that it took for me to have to go look for it by bringing it to me did not threaten my role in this process in my mind. Not yet. And I think that's intentionally. How many people was first introduced to an idea of a robot from the Jetsons? Rosie the robot, right? What role did Rosie play in the Jetsons' house? Do you remember?
Housekeeper.
Housekeeper. Not the accountant, not the lawyer, not the surgeon, not the chef, the housekeeper. So, let's think about this a little bit. It's a not threatening kind of role, the idea that I'm here to look after you, to free you important humans up to go on and do those more important things that you're going to do. Not threatening us. I believe that's intentional. I believe technology is not presented to us like HAL from 2001, or from iRobot, or from Terminator. They're not going to create a Terminator robot and expect us to buy this. No, they don't want us to be threatened. They don't want us to be worried that this technology is slowly taking over the kinds of things that we do. Now, a recent example of this kind of thing in our world has been a robot called Pepper. Anybody familiar with ATB that brought Pepper up to the branches a couple of summers ago? So Pepper is a robot on wheels. Now, what's important is Pepper is short, and Pepper has a little childlike face and great big eyes, like Disney eyes, and is the epitome of non-threatening tech. Now, that might seem obvious, but they could have designed this anyway, and they're going to make it childlike, so that if a consumer comes into a branch and the robot is coming up to them, they're not threatened. Of course, why would they want to be threatened? Meanwhile, the robot, if not today, probably fairly soon, will be able to use facial technology, recognition technology or voice recognition, be able to say, hey, sorry, what's your name? Tara. Say, oh, hello, Tara. Welcome to the branch. You haven't been in a while, because they'll know, and they'll probably see that you got a bunch of money sitting in your account, and maybe you should talk to somebody about putting it into a TFSA or something. So say, Tara, can I schedule an appointment for you with one of our, you can see them doing these kinds of roles. We're this close to it. In fact, they could probably do it, except that would scare the crap out of a lot of people that work in the financial services industry. And what we actually see today, and I've been talking about this at some very large conferences, are things like Alexa, which is the Amazon device, right? Hello, Alexa, get this for me, get that for me. Well, now Alexa can open up bank accounts and help you open up investment accounts and move money around, and all those things that people would do, technology is doing. Sneaky, right in there. Now, I don't track all the numbers in everybody's industry of job losses in technology, but I do try to track them for the financial services industry. And I can tell you with great confidence, and this is all widely reported information, some of the biggest brands that you all recognize in Canada have been proudly announcing over the last few years the number of people that they've laid off. Proudly. Because they'll say in the same announcement, because they're reallocating capital or resources to technology. They'll say it. They're not unhappy to say this. They're not afraid to, because when they openly say something to the market, it's also their way of saying, hey, you potential shareholders or current shareholders, we get it. We'll be more profitable if we get rid of people and have more tech. We're happy to tell you that's what we're doing. And that's become very concerning to a lot of people in a number of professions, accounting and legal. This is a weird just aside. I've been asked to teach, I teach a lot of ethics classes. I've been asked to teach an ethics class for the Alberta Optometry Association, which is not my area. And when I talked to them about the topic that was most concerning to them, a lot of it had to do with the impact of technology on optometrists, for crying out loud. Everybody's talking about this. The threat of technology to do the things that humans used to do that now we're not able to do anymore, or in some cases, freely giving up to technology. I mean, look at Blockbuster. 20 years. It went from being nothing to a Fortune 500 company to nothing again, and that's okay. The shareholders are big boys and girls. If they lose money, that's fine. I worry about those people that were stocking the shelves at the Blockbuster, wondering if anybody was coming up to them and saying, hey, my friend, I hope you're still going to school, because this job ain't going to be around anymore. We're all being replaced by Netflix and the like. I mean, that's how quickly technology comes along and changes them. Be very threatening. But at the same time, humans have really not changed a whole bunch. We're just forgetting about some of the things that we're hardwired to care about. I'll give you some examples. Let's talk movie industry, since we're already there. In our lifetime, going out to a movie with a group of friends was a thing. We don't need to go to movies with friends anymore. They're streamed to us anytime we want. Very inexpensively. Netflix is a great deal, even at this price. Very flexible, or elastic is the expression economists would use. That price is going to keep going up because it's a bargain still. And yet, even though we can stream this almost at no cost to us anytime we want, do people still go to movie theaters? You bet. Were we not talking about the idea of a film festival in Drumheller? Why? What's going on here? People don't just want to sit by themselves. We're hardwired to want to get together for a shared experience. It forms those relationships. It reminds us of the shared history or shared values or the similarities we might have in our tribe that brought us together because we enjoy the same kinds of things. Do you know, so Cineplex, for example, everyone's familiar with Cineplex. It's probably the best known movie house provider in Canada, not the only one. But did you know that they also own something called Rec Room? You guys, did you know they own Rec Room?
Yeah.
You knew that, so that's really good. Rec Room is a, let's call it an oversized arcade with high-end video games, often two-player interactive games. It is, and I think will become the place that a lot of us get introduced to virtual reality stuff now and in the very near future until the price point comes down and we've got it in our houses. But it'll be the place where we go and have these shared experiences. And there's a Rec Room in Edmonton, one in Calgary, there's one in other places in Canada. They've got a bar in there, they've got alcohol, they've got food, they often have live music, and the place is packed. And it's not a kid's place, it's a grown-up place, and it's a riot. What's going on? I have Xbox, I like playing Call of Duty at home in my basement by myself. I'm not embarrassed to tell you. But at the same time, getting a group together and having that shared experience we're hardwired to do this still. Sports. You can get sports entertainment anytime you want for free. Do people still go to games? Is it a big deal? Certain games? Bucket list. Going to the Olympics for somebody. Not for me, somebody else. Super Bowl. Bucket list. And they spend a fortune. And they can't even see the puck or the ball from wherever they are. They don't care. Because it's not about the game. It is about the shared experience with all these people that we're hardwired to feel a connection to. This form of relationship, this form of shared history is going on here. Now, my favorite example, though, is music. Music industry decimated in our lifetime. We get free music anytime we want. And yet, do people go to concerts? Big deal, right? Go to concerts. My wife and I went to see Lady Gaga at a little venue in New York. Managed to get on-stage tickets with her with a few other people. Not an inexpensive trip. That was an expensive trip. Did we go? Absolutely. Do we love it? You bet. I don't care. For me, it doesn't matter about the idea of these people coming together for the shared experience. And a bunch of the people now, of course, we're connected with, we keep in touch with. But that's kind of what's going on, is even though technology is able to provide things to us, professional services, entertainment, whatever it is, we are hardwired to still want to have shared experiences. And this is the thing, this is the wisdom, I would say, that is being forgotten, that needs to be re-explored, re-engaged. If we want to remain not just competitive, if we want to be super successful in our businesses, or for some of you, if you even want to be around, if you can't compete against technology with your own relationship building skills and strategies, the stuff we all used to do 10, 20, 30 years ago that people have forgotten about because it was so easy to give it up to this non-threatening technology to be the communicator on our behalf. Those are the things we need to be thinking about, not just small businesses. I have the exact same conversations on board level discussions over how do we deliver value to the marketplace. I've got a book out on the topic, but I want to give you a little bit of the snippets on relationship building through events for small businesses. I want to make sure I don't go over my time. 4 points I want to make. There's 4 things you should be thinking about if this is resonating with you and you say, I've got to start doing some relationship building stuff. This is going to be my differentiator. 4 things I want to suggest. First of all, spend a lot of time thinking about the participants in this. One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're thinking about this kind of relationship building activity is they think too small. They go, oh, I'll get a few people in a room, I'll try it out, see how it works. If I have success, I'll do it bigger next time. They convince themselves that it's more cost effective to spend a little bit of money on something that's got a little bit more. Horrible mistake. An event does not feel like an event if you've got a handful of people. It feels like nothing. And, by the way, the price starts coming down per person the bigger it gets. And I almost never spend any money on events, more than a few $100, because when they get bigger, you have sponsors, you have media, you have a whole bunch of people piling in to want to participate in something. And one of the reasons I point out that my initial introduction to this was in Airdrie, and I want to make a point, is, and there's actually an advantage, I think, in smaller communities and larger communities. And I think sometimes people in smaller communities go, oh, that's the kind of thing that works in a big city, but it doesn't, they tell themselves, it doesn't work here. I've heard, how many times I've heard that in 30 years? Yeah, it doesn't really work in my market, but they don't try it. Thinking bigger, thinking customers, friends of clients, your staff, your colleagues, the neighbors. Anybody that would want to participate in this will make it feel much more like an event. Participants. Number 2, focus on communication strategy. One of the things that we make a mistake at when we do this is we take the easy way. We convince ourselves that sending an email out to everybody is sufficient communications, and then we wonder why it's not successful. Part of communication to establish a relationship means the effort's required. The effort's required. If I buy flowers for you and present them to you, or I call my assistant to send flowers to you, different thing, right? If you guys send me off a text, hey, thanks for showing up on time today, Rod, and trying hard, or you send me a handwritten card, the exact same words, but the effort is the differentiator there, right? So when you communicate, make an effort. And we had multiple points to our communication strategy. We took this really seriously, guys, like really seriously. We would make sure that they were getting a buzz or a teaser beforehand. Like a wedding. Think in terms of a wedding. When someone announces so-and-so got engaged, we're 6 months from the invitation and everybody's talking about it. That's the buzz. I always sent an invitation out, and it always was in 3 dimensions. Card, something like that. Could have emailed it. Well, some of the time we were doing this was pre-email. Sometimes it was afterwards. But always do a hard copy. Exists in 3 dimensions, gets posted to their fridge, gets put up on the bulletin board. Every invitation has to ask for an RSVP. Don't get lazy. Make them call you back. Say, yes, I'm going. You know what happens if they call and say, yes, I'm going? What happens? They actually go. They're more likely to go, of course. And we might call that in kind of crass sales vernacular as the minor point close. If you've ever done sales trainings, they talk about those kinds of things. You get them to make a commitment. I always sent tickets. Tickets always had a price. Doesn't mean I charged them for it, but it always had a price reflecting the value of the experience, $50, $100. When you get a ticket, it's got a price on there, all of a sudden it means something, right? And what I would do is, what's your name? John. I said, John, you're my accountant, shall we say. John, here's 2 tickets for you and your significant other, and I'm going to give you another 10. Give them to your favorite clients. Well, now John's got $600 worth of stuff, man. And he's giving them out to his clients, and now they got $100 worth of stuff. There's value to this. This is really important stuff. They'll go. And you know what, John, if they can't go and they got $200 because something came up, what are they going to do? Give it to a friend. They're going to make sure somebody goes. Somebody's going to go. A couple of really quick anecdotes on this. There was a time I was helping an advisor do a client event in Cochrane. We did this communication strategy, had tickets with a price, and the radio station called, wanting to know if we would pay for advertising for the event. Radio advertising. Anybody here in the radio business? In my opinion. It's very expensive, not so sure what I'm going to get out of it. Didn't want to do it. However, we said to the radio station, what if we drop off some of our tickets? They're $50 each. I said, well, that'd be great. I'll give them away. So because there was a value on it, they interviewed us, they made a whole bunch of announcements, they gave away the tickets in the hands of people we didn't know, showed up for the event, we got new customers out of it. I'll do one more story on this, and then I'll get on to something else. There was a group of real estate developers that I worked with for a long time. They were developing real estate in Mexico, trying to do a big event in Canada, inviting clients. They wanted their clients to bring friends out. They called me up to be a keynote speaker, which I wanted to do. And I said to them, how are you going to fill the room? They said, well, we've got a budget for newspaper and radio. I said, don't spend any money on newspaper and radio. Let's make up some tickets. We'll put a price on it. Give it to your accountants, your lawyers, your realtors. Tell them to give them out to their friends. Call me in a week and a half. Tell me how we did. In a week and a half, they had so many commitments, they completely maxed out the biggest hotel room they had in that town. They canceled the radio and the television. They didn't need it. Point I'm trying to make. Client events can be extremely cost effective if you're doing it properly. Communicating. Always take the time to address the audience, your clients, with thanks. Don't do business at a client event. Use it as a time to start a relationship. That's participants, communications. Let's talk about lasting memories. The whole idea behind doing an event is to create something that forms a relationship, which means there's got to be a connective. There's got to be something that reminds them of that, something that they take forward into the future. That could be a tangible thing like a gift. Quick story. When I was doing one of my events at the Calgary Zoo, I wanted everyone to leave with a gift. I called the accountant and lawyer I was referring business to. I made arrangements for them to buy a gross of little black Beanie Baby gorillas. I got my assistant to take a red bow and put their business cards on the gorilla. And when everybody was leaving, I said, The accountant and lawyer, they stood up, thank you very much. They provided a gift for you. Everybody left with this little tiny gift. It hardly cost anything. The guys made so much money in new client business. Every time I did an event, they'd call me and say, what can we do to help? Something to take away. My favorite in this category is books. I regularly brought famous people into Canada, into Calgary. They all had books. They all autographed their books for my guests. Very often the guests got to take pictures with these people, and people keep books. Lasting memories. In my office that I worked in, instead of having, I don't know if you know what an index chart is, or a stock market performance chart, or various awards that somebody might get if they've been in the business a long time, crap like that they put up on their office wall. I never did any of that. I took down all the crap and I put up posters of all the events that we had. One of the offices, a big office for investors group that I did some consulting with, they completely redesigned their office and they were sponsoring local musical theater. Every year they did an event at the production, and then they would put a poster up on their wall. So when the clients came in, they were reminded of the relationship. And if a new person came in, they were immediately told there's something different here than the normal person I go to. Lasting memories within your office. There's so much great stuff here. I could go on for hours. Let's stop that. Lasting memories. The last one, venue. We're doing for time. Venue. The venue is really, really super important. There's 4 considerations for venue. First 2, traditional versus non-traditional. A traditional venue is like this place here, designed to have a group of people. You know where it is, you've been here before, it's easy to get the food in, easy to set up the camera, doesn't require a lot of work, but you've been here many times, right? Call this a traditional venue. In terms of long-term relationship building, maybe not optimal. I personally like non-traditional venues. Zoos, museums. We did the Calgary ski jump over in there. I spoke at the Royal Canadian Mint in Winnipeg one time. Their money was being printed around us. Any place that's kind of cool and interesting and memorable. Now, it doesn't have to be non-traditional, but if you go traditional, you got to think to yourself, okay, given the fact that this looks like any other hotel room I've been in, I better do something to make this memorable. We've got to do something in this environment so it doesn't become one more visit to a room. It's the same thing with hockey tickets. I mean, there's a bunch of guys in our business, and probably many other businesses, where anytime they don't know what to do with clients, they buy a bunch of hockey tickets and they go to the hockey game, and you know what? Those people have been to 1 million hockey games. They're never going to remember that hockey game. Unless you line up a meeting with the coach, the ref, there's something's got to go on here for it to be the most remotely memorable. The best weddings that I've been to has been with something, and we've all been to 1 million weddings, right? The ones that they came up with something new and original, you go, yeah, I'm going to remember that. You know, that's part of the spirit of what we're looking for here, is it's got to be memorable. And one of the ways you make it memorable, in addition to thinking about that traditional versus non-traditional venue, is the other part, which is active versus passive. If the audience is always, your participants is always sitting listening, that's okay. But it better be a really good speaker, something really compelling going on. But one thing that teachers are taught, anybody have an education background here? Sarah, a little bit, yeah? One of the things that you can say yes or no, that the teachers are taught is that if you can get your audience doing things with their hands, with their mouths, interacting with each other, they're going to remember the situation, the information. It's just almost common sense. And yet we don't think about that in our own relationship building. So we always try to do non-traditional venues with stuff that got people up and moving around and interacting, either working with their hands and stuff. And in my book, I try to chronicle some of the best stories I've heard from my colleagues in different professions all across Canada, because I've been tracking this for 20 years. And the number of interesting things that people came up with to get people doing stuff was so cool. Really, really, really important. It's one of the reasons why I'm a fan of Alice Coleman. I see it as a non-traditional venue with great potential to make it memorable and personalize it for yourself. It invites participation, it invites walking around, it invites touching things and interacting and communicating. And and if you haven't done that activity in a while, you should do it so you can get a sense. Walk through it next time you're going through on one of their tours and go, wow, what is it about this that is so different from other types of just walking around a museum experience? It's one of the reasons I like it. Now, some organizations, perhaps like Atlas will be thinking about going forward, is they'll also create events so that you can plug into them. Because one of the hard things is trying to be creative, right? So, well, Rod, that sounds really good in theory. I am so busy doing my job, and I don't have the luxury of a full-time event, or whatever you might say. Sometimes it's hard to take what I'm saying and put it to work, right? But some of these great organizations are already involved in creating various events there. All you have to do is reach out to them and say, listen, I'm kind of interested in doing something. What have you guys got going on? Help me think through this. Help me do something this memorable. So I think the Atlas is a really good example of a local organization that's doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, 15 minutes. No, maybe less, 10 minutes. Going to end up with two stories. Two stories now. Lasting memories. One time, I got contacted by the Calgary Zoo because they had spoken to Jane Goodall. Do everyone know who Jane Goodall is? Chimpanzees, yes? Or monkeys? Chimpanzees. Thank you. Jane's been speaking internationally for decades and decades and decades, right? And so the zoo says, not only do we have Jane lined up, we also have the Jubilee Theatre in Calgary lined up. This is a 2,000-person venue. This is beyond my skill set at the time, beyond my skill set. And they said, how would you like to do some kind of client event and help us, kind of turn this into a much bigger thing? And I was scared. I quickly said yes. I quickly hung up. Because I figured if I thought about it too much, I'd say no. And I wanted to say yes and get the hell out of there. And then, oh my God, what have I got myself into? So we had months preparing for this. And it went well. It went well. We had over 2,000 people out there. We got corporate sponsorship. My clients, the first 2 rows were all my clients. And we had a private reception with Jane afterwards where they all got pictures with her, got autographed books, and that kind of thing. So it was as per plan, right? So they're somewhat passive because, I said I prefer active. So afterwards, the idea of walking around and having an appetizer and talking to somebody and each other was where I tried to add this active element, standing with the person, getting a picture, that kind of thing. Now, why am I sharing this story? Because something weird happened that was unexpected. We were talking to her early 2001, and we booked her at the Jubilee Theatre October 2001. And in September the 11th, and Jane's office, was in New York, across from the World Trade Center. Couldn't get her slides, couldn't get her pictures. If you not know why this is significant, I suggest to you, it's kind of like you guys having Elton John come to Drumheller, and his traveling piano, the one that he's going to play on, is destroyed in a fire the week before, and he shows up with no piano. As Jane, without her images, that's her instrument. That's the music that she's playing, is based upon that. And if you recall, the feeling in society at that time, sad is not a strong enough word. Melancholy, gloomy. Maybe if there's anything that could be approximate group depression, I think that would be what comes to my mind. I've never, fortunately, had to be associated with any kind of war because I'm too young, but I imagine that that's how people might have felt if they were exposed to that consistently. People were sad. So when they attended this event, it wasn't with jubilation, even though that's the name of the theater. It wasn't with the sense of the whimsy and fun stories. When Jane Goodall got up on stage, she talked about what people are doing to each other on the planet, the problems we're causing, the impact that will be on the environment, the impact that will be on animals. And for years, I would run into people that I didn't know attended the event, and they'd come up to me at a business meeting or something, they'd pull me aside, and they'd say, Brian, just wanted you to know I attended that Jane Goodall event. My God, that was like one of the most moving, serious couple of hours I've ever had in my life. Lasting memories, connecting people, not about money, but about something way, way, way more important than that. I don't want to end on that note, so I'm going to leave you with another story. A happy story. So, when I was an advisor, one of the things I did a lot of was adventure style kind of stuff. You heard Everest climbers, Arabian Desert, Jane Goodall, that kind of thing. I liked it a lot. And in fact, and you'll read this in the book if you bother to pick it up. Sorry, that didn't come out the way I wanted to. If you're kind enough to pick one up, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, sorry, not perfect. Is that, where am I going with this story? We were doing a lot of adventure stuff. In fact, we were doing stuff on cruise ships. We would do projects in Mexico. People would fly down. The biggest one ever I did at that time, we had 150 people come down to a resort in Mexico for a week, all on them. And we were doing some really cool stuff. But this adventure thing was something that resonated to me because I realized people don't care about money. Money is not valuable in itself. It's only valuable when it does, as you said, freedom. Or people have a chance to go off and have their adventures before they die. So we're trying to give people these adventures, but I had part of my clientele that were past the adventures. They were too old. And a lot of these were single females. They lost their spouses. They still had it here, but they didn't quite have it in the physical part of it. And so we wanted to kind of do a mock adventure for them. So once again, we picked the Calgary Zoo, and one of their speakers, does everyone know who Brian Keating is? Yeah, Brian's a great guy. He's charming. He's not as tall as Bruce, but he's charming. Women love Brian Keating. I don't know. Anyway, so Brian's going to be our keynote speaker. Now, Brian does a lot of great stuff for the zoo, but one of the things he does is he takes people on safari adventures. And he had taken this group of, let's call them silver-haired adventurers to Africa, and he videotaped everything, and he created a presentation around this. It was so good. So you've got to picture this. So I've got a mixed crowd, but it's skewing towards the aging female persuasion. And it's in a room with tiered seats, there's no windows, and everyone's kind of buzzing around and talking, and all of a sudden, boom, the lights go black. Black. Can you picture it? With the blackness, there's a gasp from the audience. And then the drums start. African drum. Dum, 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 dum. And the light comes on Brian Keating's face on stage. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Africa, he says. And the screen comes down and the video starts. And it's the seniors, and he's narrating the whole adventure. And in one scene, the seniors are canoeing down the Zambezi River, and they're going through the reeds, and all of a sudden, out of the water comes a hippopotamus. And the audience goes, and the drums go, dun, 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 dun. And they go along a little bit more, and Brian keeps narrating this amazing story, and they get out of the canoe, and they're walking through the brush, and all of a sudden, they hear this elephant, and the audience goes, and the drums go, dun, 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 dun. And then it becomes calm. It's now the end of their adventure day, and on the screen there is a bunch of these seniors sitting in lawn chairs sipping wine, and Brian Keating starts talking to the camera up there, and he has quiet ear. He's talking to the camera on the screen, and he says, hello everyone. He says, we've had the most amazing adventure today, and the sun is setting over the Zambezi River, and it's amazingly beautiful. He says, I want to end the day by doing something I've always wanted to do. And then he cuts to a scene of him cartwheeling down the hill into the Zambezi River. And there's this, it's in silhouette because the sun is setting behind us, beautiful. But you realize he's naked. And the reason you know he's naked is because you can see the silhouette of his penis in the air. And you go, is that really him? And then he cuts to the exact same scene, and you go, yeah, that's him, he's naked! And the wind go, and the drums go, dun, 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 dun. And for years after that, I have some of these females come into my office, and they look at the poster of Brian up on the wall and go, so how's Brian? You know, this idea of turning what we do into something much more than what we do for the value proposition. Most of what we do is not on anybody's bucket list. If we're lucky, we can make what we do about someone's bucket list. That's got to be around how we communicate with people, how we form relationships, how we maintain those relationships. It can't be about relying on technology. Either you're going to lose that business opportunity to another person, or you're going to lose it to technology. But we're still hardwired to want to have these experiences. And if you had a smile on your face, or anything I said in those last two stories resonate with you, it means we're all hardwired the same way. There's something about that experience, those relationships we want to have. I want to thank you very much for your time. Again, for Atlas for having me out, and for the staff and team of Drumheller, and everyone for coming out today. Thank you so much for your attention. I greatly appreciate it. Woo! Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Lots of smiles, and that was excellent. Hope there's lots of
Do you want me
information.
to stay in case
Yeah,
there's a
you can
question?
stay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I hope there's lots of information that you guys can all take back and apply in your own workplaces and whatnot. Very, very engaging. Does anyone have any questions for